Well, gentlefolk and rapscallions of all persuasions, it is the end of September 2023. Fall is finally here in Southern California, which is very nice when you live in a house that's almost 70 years old with no air conditioning. I've not yet had anything pumpkin spice, which my boyfriend is very proud of me for. So, let's get on to the books that I read in September. So, first of all, I listened to a book called The Alice Network, which is a story about a woman who is a spy in World War I, and there's a frame story where a much younger woman is coming to her and asking for her help trying to find out what happened to her cousin during the Second World War. And it's a really interesting look at the power of being invisible or the power of being overlooked when you're in a position like being a spy. And it has some really good character dynamics between these two women, and there's a lot of secrecy on the part of the older one because she doesn't really want to get back into the things that were going on in her past. There is somebody who caused her quite a bit of harm, both physically and emotionally, that she has to deal with, and it's a really good story. I listened to the whole thing in about 2 days. I highly recommend it. Got it from my local library on loan for the audiobook. So next we had another of the various advanced reader copies that I got for free at Comic-Con, just wandering around to the booth and seeing who was giving things out. This one is actually out now. It came out on September 26th, this past Tuesday. It's called The Salvation Gambit by Emily Skrutsky. And based on the premise, I was expecting to like this one a little bit more than I did. Basically, a group of confidence women is arrested and imprisoned on this sentient ship that is a prison colony unto itself. And it's one of those books that's 300 pages long and really only 4 things happen in the whole thing. And it just didn't have as satisfying of a resolution as I was expecting it to. I can absolutely see this being a book that works for people. It just didn't work for me. And apparently it's just my summer to be picking up unexpected sapphic romances, because there's an aspect of that too, which is fine. Again, I really don't seek out romance as a subplot in my stories, and so when it shows up, I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm along for the ride. Next book that I actually DNF'd because I couldn't connect with it and was a story structure that I'm not really a fan of was 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl by Mona Awad. And I picked this book up because I read an article on my newsfeed that this author was coming and doing an event here in my hometown, because this is a place that she comes to vacation and do some of her writing. And that book sounded interesting, and so I bought a copy of it without having any idea who this author was or what other things she wrote, and I was like, maybe I should go and check something else out, even though I'd already bought this new book of hers that was coming out, which I still need to go and pick up from the bookstore, because I ended up not being able to make it to the event. 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl is one of those books that's just a series of unconnected vignettes at various points in somebody's life, and there's no context, no introduction. You're just kind of thrown into wherever she is at that particular point in her life. And that's not something that I like to read. It's not something that's entertaining for me. I like having a story that has a through line, that has a really good plot and development. And this was just sort of, again, a series of vignettes. And also, because of who the main character was and her particular life struggles, I couldn't connect with her, I couldn't relate to her, and I ended up skimming about the last third of it just to see if anything else happened that would capture my interest. That it really didn't. Again, I can understand why other people would like this, and it has sort of an open-ended conclusion where it's just like, no, not everybody always gets a happily ever after. Sometimes you just have to do the best with the life that you've got, and that just wasn't what I was looking for. Next, I decided to check out Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. For anyone who hasn't heard of Outlander and is not familiar with the premise, a nurse from World War II is sent back in time to 1743 in the Scottish Highlands, and she gets married to somebody in that time period, And this is the opposite of the Salvation Gambit, where it's a 300-page book where 4 things happen. So much happens in this book, and way more things than needed to happen happened in this book, in my opinion. There are repeated incidents of attempted assault on our main character, which I was not here for. There is a really complicated interaction between his cultural values and her cultural values, and how you sort out problems in a relationship. And overall, I don't think I'm going to be continuing the series because I did not like this book all that much. After that, I picked up a memoir by Tracy Walder, who is a former CIA and FBI agent, and I liked her story. It was really short. It was about 8 hours. It was just a really interesting look at somebody who came from Southern California, was a sorority girl, and how seriously she was taken in each of those agencies and kind of the differences in experience that she had at those jobs. After that, I got to Harrow the Ninth, which is the second book in the Locked Tomb series, and what I will say is, if you're going to pick up the Locked Tomb series, don't go in with any sort of expectations, because it will subvert and destroy all of them, because this had a completely different feel than Gideon the Ninth did. Ample use of the second person and unreliable narrator, and as somebody who, you can see the stack of Cosmere swag boxes from the Year of Sanderson in the background here, I have been immersed in the Cosmere for so long that I try to piece things together and figure out what's going on. And not only is the magic system in the Locked Tomb a soft magic system, where you don't know the rules as the reader, the combination of the second person and the unreliable narrator, and the character herself just being completely out of her depth with people who are stronger than she is, I kept trying to put the pieces together, and that is not this kind of story. You just have to be along for the ride. I did, however, call who the narrator was on page 2. I was very proud of that. Next was the first book in the Mistborn Era 1 trilogy, which is part of the Cosmere, and that is The Final Empire, or simply just Mistborn. I think it's been rebranded in the last couple of years, and I think Sanderson talked about this on his podcast. If you have the first book in a series called The Final Empire, people might be looking for the other books that precede it, when in fact it is the first, and I definitely remember that happening to me in 2010, 11, when I was first picking these books up. This is part of my endeavor to do an entire refresh of the Cosmere before Stormlight 5 comes out next year, and I'll be doing plot recaps on all of the major novels in the Cosmere. So The Final Empire follows a young street urchin named Vin, who realizes that she has these incredible magical abilities. She is recruited to be part of a thieving crew that are trying to pull the ultimate heist and take down the ruler who has been alive for 1,000 years. So I don't want to give too much away. If you are new to this channel and you're not here for the Cosmere content and you just sort of clicked on some random person with 4 subscribers September reading wrap up. So recommend it, go check it out. And that is what I read in the month of September 2023. So until next time, stay spicy.